Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Green Zone podcast for this week's episode. I'm Cameron Green. I'm your host of this week's episode and this series in general. Make sure to follow us on our Twitter page at Green Zone Pod, as well as our YouTube channel, Green Zone Pod. If you're finding this here for the first time, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want to. I really appreciate you guys interacting with me on our YouTube channel. It's really fun to see you guys who tune in weekly on a weekly basis. It's fun to see you guys come back and have some fun. So we have some fun listening to this podcast here. Today we're going to be focusing mainly on the NFL. There's not a lot going on in other sports leagues. I did post on our Twitter page some of my predictions from last week's episode about MLB free agency. We have graphics on that on our Twitter page, so go free to check those out. We're gonna have a live counter on how I did with those, so we'll see if I, get how many right. I think I have 24 players, 23 players, somewhere in there. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those we actually nail or not. Because free agency is right around the corner for Major League Baseball, and we like to get to that part of the season. It's always a fun time to talk about. But I did do my MLB free agency video. Might do a reaction video to my predictions from baseball coming into this season, all the way back from last March. Well, I might get a reaction video here maybe next week. There will not be an episode next week on Thursday, but there is planned to be one on Tuesday. So for those of you who tune in every Thursday, aim for next Tuesday to be that one. We'll do the Thanksgiving picks. We'll do all that there, but I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving as well. So next Tuesday, we aim to have an episode here on the Green Zone podcast. I want to start today's episode. Like I mentioned, we're going to be in the NFL realm of it. I want to hit the midway point this season. I know we're a little bit past the midway point, but we're kind of closing in on the home stretch of what the NFL season really is all about. Um, and where I think some teams stand, I have five underachieving teams. I have five surprising teams. And I want to give my mid-season awards. We'll be doing all of that before we cover our weekly picks, of course, based off ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em, as we have every week on this podcast for week 12 this season. So I want to start off here, the five most underachieving teams in the NFL. Let's go. I want to get it done. I want to start off here. Number five, I got the San Francisco 49ers. Now, right now in the season, they're 5-5. They're right at the home stretch of their season in a very delicate spot for where they could be the playoffs. I mean, it's a possibility the 49ers, I think for my Super Bowl pick, may not make the Super Bowl or even the playoffs, even at all. And I get that there's been injuries happening all season for them. And you don't have Christian McCaffrey for the first 2 months of the season. You're bound to have some growing pains. But Jordan Mason filled on those shoes pretty well. It was pretty good games from him. But Deebo Samuel's been in and out of the lineup all season. George Kittle's been banged up this season as well. Now Nick Bosa's banged up for them. Of course, you lose Brandon Ayuk for the season. This is a team that, of course, its strengths are the weapons that they have on the team. And when you look at that, the 49ers right now, when you lose those weapons, maybe Brock Purdy is relying to do a little bit more, but Juwan Jennings is playing a really good season. He's had a really solid rebound season for him, stepping in for Brandon Ayuk, what he usually does. But I mean, the 49ers right now at 5-5 are underachieving by their standards and where they want to be. Number four, I have the very own Chicago Bears. This was a season where I thought three teams would make the NFC, three teams in the NFC North would make the playoffs. And I had the Bears, I had the Packers, and I had the Lions. The Packers, Lions, it's a good prediction. Did not have the Vikings in there. And I had the Bears making a wild card spot this season, but it's been anything but that, at least the last month. They lost four straight. They have not been able to recover since the loss against the Commanders on the Hail Daniels, the Hail Mary, the Hail Daniels there. But for me, I look at it where Matt Eberflus is going to be gone for this season. I don't think there's any way that Chicago brings him back after this year. And I think they try and go after a guy like Cliff Kingsbury to come in and get that head coaching job and be Caleb's guy. I mean, that's the kind of thing you're going for, uh, especially because you're not going to be able to get him as an offense coordinator, and he's already in Washington. So he can't be a coordinator for your team, but if he wants to be a head coach, that's I think what you look at there. But Chicago right now, 4-6. It's kind of on the outskirts of not making the playoffs. If you had to guess right now, I would say they would not make the playoffs. The offense that was known for loading up in weapons, kind of like the 49ers, with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift. But unlike the 49ers, those weapons have not been hurt. The offense just is not clicking. It's not working at all. The defense has kind of kept them in games in some areas, but I mean, they scored their first touchdown in 3 games last week. It's not a good look for Chicago. And Caleb Williams, obviously, I wouldn't say he's having a bad season, but he's having a season below what he wants to have for the Chicago Bears and for himself personally. But I mean, Chicago right now at number 4 at 4-6. There's still time, but you're really losing hope there, especially with the Packers being in third place at 7 wins. Bears 3 games out from that. I don't really see the Bears making the playoffs. Someone might be a wrong end on my part. Number 3, I have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm putting them here because they are always a slow team out of the gates, and that is kind of the normal season to season thing with Cincinnati. I don't really understand why that this happens pretty much seems like every year for the past, ever since Burrow has really been there, maybe full seasons for him, maybe for the last 4 years. But the Bengals are 4-7, and they're losing games that they should win, and even games that they're kind of in the mix for. They have not had a win against a team that's over 500. But the thing is, though, is that Joe Burrow is playing at an MVP level, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Jamar Chase is looking like the best receiver in football this year. Chase Brown, the running game is not actually doing that bad. You do have T. Higgins there has been hurt in areas of the game. You got the NFL's leading sack leader in Trey Hendrickson. I don't really understand why they're not winning more games. A team like that should not be 4-7 in the closing, month and a half of um this season. I don't really think that that's where they want to be or where they should be even. So the Bengals, I have them at 3 right now. They still have hope to try and at least squirm into the playoffs. I know that AFC is a little weaker than previous years, but the Bengals at number 3 is one of the most underachieving teams. Number 2, I have the Air or not there, so the New York Jets, where Aaron Rodgers and company, it's falling apart. Everyone feels like they're getting divorced from the Jets. I think Aaron's gonna be next after this season. Does that mean Devontae Adams wants out? Like, what does this mean for the Jets? Like, I, this is what I think. You wanted to accommodate for Aaron Rodgers last year. And that's fine. You brought in Alan Lazard, who's actually had a good season when he's not on IR. You brought in Randall Cobb last year, did not make much of an impact. You brought in Devontae Adams this year. Um, but you bring in Nathaniel Hackett. You bring in Aaron's guys from Green Bay. And not saying that's a bad thing by any means, but really what you're saying is you're giving a lot of power to one player that if this thing goes wrong, I mean, who's the blame? Is it excuse me. Is it Jets ownership though? Is it Woody Johnson to blame if if this season doesn't work for the Jets? Like, is this it? I don't think it's Robert Saleh's fault. You fire him to spark change out of someone else, but is it really his fault? I don't think so. I don't really think it's Joe Douglas's fault. The GM, you made all these moves to accommodate your quarterback. I mean, you wanted to win now with him. Aaron's just not playing well. The Jets aren't playing well. Sauce Gardner's not playing well. Brees Hall's playing fine, but everyone else just isn't playing well. There's a reason why they only have 3 wins on the season. They're not a good football team. It's like playing fantasy football. I'll bring in Rodgers. I'll bring in Adams. I got Brees Hall. Got my guys. It's not translating. I don't really know what to say about the Jets other than that everything is just not translating. And it's beyond a lost cause, I think, for me. I wonder if they would ever make the move of benching Aaron Rodgers in the last final weeks. And it sounds terrible, but benching him in the final weeks to get him pissed off enough the fact he doesn't want to come back and is done with the Jets, and they can kind of say goodbye anyways. That's what they want to do. I don't know, but I do know the Jets are my number 2 most underachieving team of this season. And at number 1, I think everyone knows what's coming up. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Um, this is a team that knew what they were going up against this season by not spending a lot of money. And I think I said this in my predictions from uh, this past season, what I had lined up. There's not a lot of depth on this Dallas Cowboys squad. I think that that's exactly what I said. And look at it now. You don't have a running game with more than Ezekiel Elliott. Rico Dowdle's fine, but that's not a running game. CeeDee Lamb still playing like CeeDee Lamb, but you don't have anything else. Jake Ferguson. Dak Prescott's hurt. You don't have a quarterback now. Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, fine, it's whatever. But now you're just filling in guys. It's kind of like when Romo got hurt the one year and they bring in John Kitna. It's like it's over. It's not going to happen. Um, but my biggest concern for Dallas and for its fans is that they knew what they were getting into. Jerry Jones knew that there were holes to be fixed, and he just didn't want to address them and didn't want to fix them. To me, it's a loser mentality for that. Dallas, I think to me, there's just a standard of winning there that they're just not living up to. Um, Maybe you look for them to splash a lot next year, but you just paid CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. You're gonna have to pay Micah Parsons next. Like I don't know where do you go from here. You kind of set yourself back some time here, but the Cowboys are easily my number one most underachieving team, and we got to watch them play on Thanksgiving next week against Tommy DeVito and the Giants. So like we're gonna see how that's gonna be. I've seen the tweets and the memes about they're like this is where I can feel that mid-afternoon nap. And I can honestly it makes sense. It makes sense that's what's gonna happen at some point. But Cowboys, my number one most underachieving team this season. I want to flip this around because I have another top five coming up here. Let's do this. I want to do this top five as well. On the flip side of the underachieving teams, let's go with the teams that are overachieving or maybe just surprising in 2024. Let's do this. I want to start off with my number five. I don't really know if it's overachieving or just a surprise. Pittsburgh Steelers are number five on my list of most surprising teams of 2024. I don't think it should be a surprise, but I think looking in, I thought it was going to be Baltimore and it was going to be Cincinnati the whole year. And I had Cleveland there silly. I thought Cleveland, I thought they were going to play better than they actually did. So, and I think I had Pittsburgh actually finishing last in my division predictions, and that's a fool of me because I just didn't know how this Justin Fields, Russell Wilson thing was going to work out. But Mike Tomlin is coaching up a hell of a squad. Uh, Steelers right now are 8-2, looking to fight for the one seed, you can say, in the AFC playoffs right now. I know it's a long season. There's still a ton of football left to be played. But the Steelers, number five on my most surprising teams of 2024. Number four, I have the Minnesota Vikings, another team that I predicted to finish last in their division this year. I thought the Vikings were no more than a 7-win team at best, and that was like when we were going to play. I had the Vikings winning games at this point this season when you're playing Tennessee, Jacksonville, Chicago. Like those are the games I thought that they would might be able to flirt with winning and splitting those against those division rivals. Um, I certainly did not think they would have more than 7 wins at this point in the season. I think it shows the genius of Kevin O'Connell that he is a great head coach in this NFL, organization, the league, and what he can develop there. If this is the 1 year run for Sam Darnold in his career, I mean, this is a great time for Darnold to have a chance to win because it's pretty obvious that the JJ McCarthy era is right on deck after this season and next season. And there's a lot to be hopeful that he can turn Sam Darnold into possibly a Pro Bowl player, that he can do the same thing for McCarthy. We give him some time, we give him some patience there. Number three, I have the LA Chargers. Now, I went to the season, I think I might have had the Chargers at last again. I'm not sure exactly, but the Chargers, I thought they had no weapons, didn't have much of a running game. I was wrong about that. And I didn't think they were anything to work with offensively. Where I'm getting at here is they're 7-3, and I don't think they're done winning games. Like, I mean, they think they might win 10 or 11 games this season. They won't win the AFC West because the Chiefs will just find a way to probably win 14 or 15 games. But the Chargers win 10, 11 games, sneak in that AFC wild card. The teams I had there in the beginning, the Jets, the Dolphins, those are all might be by the wayside. LA Chargers at number three. Jim Harbaugh is turning that franchise around. And what he's done with a seemingly different talent there, he's my number three on my NFL's most surprising teams. Number two, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this was a team I thought coming into the season that wasn't going to finish last, but I had like a sneaky team. It wouldn't surprise me if this team won 8 games or more or lost 8 games or less. I'm flipping around here. The Cardinals, I thought we were a sneaky team. So I'm not putting them as a big surprise to me, But I think to most of the league, when you thought you had Kyler Murray, a lot of the same players from last season, they didn't win as many games, that they would be kind of limping around. But remember, Kyler Murray didn't play until about week, what, 10 last year? And when he played, he was super effective. But I think the Cardinals are putting it all together and working to get some wins as a group there. That's why they're my number two and my most surprising teams in 2024. And of course, my number one most surprising team in 2024, I think I had them finishing third in this division. I want to say going into the season, maybe fourth. It's the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels is the future of I want to say the league, but there is a newer era, guys. If you look at the tiers and you look at, see, like Rodgers is probably that top. Then you got like Kirk and some of those other guys there. The young dudes that used to be young, like the Mahomes, the Goffs, the Burrows, Lamars. This new era, Jaden Daniels leads that new era of what could be future NFL quarterbacks, or it could be just the best of the bunch at that area. Though, but the Commanders right now looking to be in a playoff spot. They're better than Dallas. They're better than the Giants. Trying to think of teams that are probably better than the NFC. I mean, I think they're better than the entire NFC West. They can rival the NFC North and some of those teams. They might be better than Green Bay. They might be better than Minnesota. Um, could be one of the best teams just in football in general. But we'll see how they finish this season. Like I say, it's a long season. It's a long stretch here. But at this point in the season, at week 12, the Commanders are my most surprising team in the NFL in 2024. With that, I want to talk about my midseason awards. And this is my predictions here. Um, this is my area. We're looking at where the season might be leading at, and what we think would be happening there. I want to pull up my old predictions I had for MVPs, all this, whatnot, and see where I want to flip. Maybe I have a do-over in this area. MVP originally I had was Brock Purdy. I don't want to fall too far away from that. Brock Purdy in the MVP race is not too far down the list. He's ninth in the list. He's tied with Joe Burrow. And it's funny because Burrow's having just a career year statistically, but he's right there in the mix right now. The odds go in this order: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and of course Purdy. Now, I'm not taking the favorite here. I think Josh Allen is probably one of the, he'll probably be in that top panelist for the MVP. I think Jalen Hurts will be in that panelist for MVP. But right now, it's still Lamar Jackson in my book. He's played flawless football all season. Hasn't really had to make too many mistakes. He's done a lot with what it's been given him. I know he does have a lot of weapons, but receiving wise, it's pretty much the same guys from year on a year. And the main difference here is just having Derrick Henry in that backfield with him. Lamar Jackson, my MVP. Offensive player of the year, I had it was going to be CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas Cowboys, of course. Um, and if I could have a do-over right now, I would probably give it out to Saquon Barkley, because that Eagles squad last year, who struggled down the stretch and limped their way into the playoffs, and of course just got destroyed by the Buccaneers in that playoff game. Saquon Barkley has transcended that team from, good team to a great team this past year. So Saquon Barkley, I think you could look at there and say Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry should be in that mix as well. Against Jamar Chase, probably the best receiving wise statistic receiver this year, and Derrick Henry's having a great year. But if Lamar's your MVP and your offensive player of the year goes towards the best non-quarterback in football, Saquon Barkley is right there. I think he's in the mix, honestly, for the MVP too. He's going to be my offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year, I went with an outside pick, and I went with Antoine Winfield Jr. And while he is having a really good season, it's clear that TJ Watt's the favorite to win this award. And you're leading a squad that's 8-2 in the season. That's just on a monster tear. We're looking at that, this season. Um, and that's exactly what TJ Watt is leading this defense to be. He's a scary player, and again, he's just an intimidating force in there. I think I have TJ Watt, my defensive player of the year, of course. Offensive rookie, or I should say rookies of the year. Now, originally I had it was Caleb Williams because I thought he was going to make the biggest difference on a playoff team. I thought the quarterback that would win it, the player that plays all year, leads their team to a playoff spot, and can reset the franchise. Caleb Williams has still probably reset the franchise. He's going to play all year, but he's not leading them to a playoff spot. Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels are. That's why I had them as my rookies of the year. If I had to give it to him right now, I'd probably go Jaden Daniels. But Bo Nix, man, Bo Nix has looked really good in the games that he has played. I'll say Daniels right now. If I had to pick one, I'll go Jaden Daniels, but Bo Nix right there. The two rookies of the year offensively. I'm going to skip defensive rookie of the year. I want to focus on comeback player of the year. Um, the betting favorite right now for comeback player of the year, um, looking it up here, is Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, J.K. Dobbins, Kyler Murray, Nick Chubb, Justin Herbert, DeMar Hamlin, Aaron Rodgers, and Tank Dell. I think it should go to J.K. Dobbins. I did not realize the injury history that all these injuries that piled up on there for him until I looked at him the other day, and he is being a great player on a Chargers squad that wasn't supposed to be a great team. We're talking about comeback player of the year, maybe a comeback coach of the year with Jim Harbaugh, comeback team of the year. The Chargers have it all going for them right now. J.K. Dobbins my comeback player of the year, and that's leading into my coach of the year. I'm picking Jim Harbaugh because I have Mike Tomlin and Dan Campbell on here, but Dan Campbell took his team to the NFC title game last year. You know, the standards were already high. Mike Tomlin, we've known what he's done. He has high standards, but it was going to be was Jim Harbaugh going to be able to recreate what he did in San Francisco in LA? And then it's week 12, it's early, it's whatever, but it's kind of worked. It's kind of looked like Jim Harbaugh is putting this Chargers franchise where they want to be. And it looks like he's doing the same thing he's doing with the 49ers. So Jim Harbaugh, my NFL coach of the year. I'm going to shift as we go into our picks here. It's going to be our last segment here of this podcast, strictly an NFL podcast. I want to get you guys back into that football mode. We're going to start off with week 12 NFL picks. Tonight's game, Thursday night football, Pittsburgh Steelers at 3.5-point favorites over the Cleveland Browns. It's pretty easy to me. I'm taking Steelers in the spread. I'm taking Steelers in the straight up. They're playing really well right now, and I want to see the team beat up on the Browns once again. Jameis Winston actually played pretty well last week, despite the Browns falling in that one, but I think I'm going to take Steelers straight up in the spread. Minnesota Vikings at 3.5-point favorites will travel to Chicago to take on Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. Once again, I'm taking the Vikings in the straight up, taking the Vikings in the spread. It's a game that Chicago needs to have, but I think they needed to have some games over the last month. They're beyond, I think, the chance to really fix this squad, and I think the Vikings here need to keep pace to try and flirt with the Lions for the division title. I don't think it's going to happen, but be within a game of the Lions and keep them the pressure on for them. So Vikings in the straight up, Vikings in the spread. Detroit Lions at 7.5-point favorites against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. There's no reason to go against the Lions right now, and I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to take the Lions in the straight up and Lions in the spread at 7.5 points. Jared Goff responding with that 5 interception a week with a nice, perfect week against Jacksonville. Again, they're just one of the most dynamic teams in football. I think now I can say they are the best team in football. Mm-hmm. I said I wasn't going to do it until the Chiefs lost. Chiefs lost last week. Lions are the best team in football. I'm going to take them in the spread, take them in the straight up. The Miami Dolphins are 7.5-point favorites at home against New England Patriots, who are 3-8 on the season. I'm going to take the Dolphins in the straight up on this one, but I'm going to take the Patriots in the spread because I think Drake May is going to have a pretty good game in Miami. Not a lot of weather to worry about right now. If Tua and Tyreek can have a game, they need to win these ones to keep themselves alive in the playoff hunt. So that's why I have them in the straight up. But the spread wise, it could be a close game, probably like a 6-point game. I'm going to take the Patriots in the spread. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 5.5-point favorites against the New York Giants, who are at home starting Tommy DeVito this week after moving on from Daniel Jones. I'm going to take the Buccaneers in this one in the straight up just because, they've played with every team they've had to play this season. They're 4-6. It's not really their fault, I want to say, but they're just not playing the best football. They're playing really good football, but it's not the best they want to be. And the Giants, Tommy DeVito hasn't played in over a year. I don't really see this one changing that much. I'll take the Buccaneers at 5.5-point favorites in the straight up in the spread. Dallas Cowboys will travel to the Washington Commanders, where the Commanders are 10.5-point favorites. I don't know. I mean, like Dallas, I think to me plays a close enough game that they can maintain this one, but they've been down by 20 points to every team they've had at home. The Commanders have been a great, team so far, but I think this rivalry is going to incite the fact that Dallas needs to play better. I think Washington will win this straight up, but 10.5 point favorites for a team that has shown flaws over the last few weeks um, worries me a little bit. I'm going to take the Cowboys in the spread at 10.5 points to cover that, but the Commanders to win this one straight up. Kansas City Chiefs are 11.5 point favorites against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Now, normally I would still look at this and say one of the best teams in football, one of the worst teams in football, they should kill them. But because I think Bryce Young wants to have a game that he can show people he can go toe to toe with Mahomes, I'm not saying he's going to throw for 300 yards or whatever. Bryce Young, I think, is going to have a good game. That's my hot take of the week. Bryce Young will have a really good game. Maybe for him. I don't know if it's going to be a really good game for everyone's standards, but for him, it'll be a really good game. I'm going to take the Panthers to cover the 11.5 point spread. Of course, I'll take the Chiefs in the straight up. Tennessee Titans will travel to the Houston Texans and play there, where the Texans are 8.5 point favorites in this week. Um, Look, I mean, I like the Titans. I like the Titans to see that they're improving a little bit. They played okay against the Vikings, but still, it's not anything fancy. I'm going to take the Texans in the straight up in the spread. I think that these guys need to have a really bounce back week and start to peel away from the AFC South if they haven't already. They need to really separate themselves from the Indianapolis Colts if they win this game and the Colts lose. It's a 3 game difference with only, what, 5, 6 weeks to play. Just need to get yourself into a point where you are comfortable where you're at for the playoffs. That's where the Texans come in here. I'm going to take them in the spread and the straight up. Denver Broncos at 305 will be taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Broncos are 5.5 point favorites. And I'm going to take Denver in both of these ones as well this week. The Vegas Raiders have not really shown me anything to get excited about this year. Whereas Bo Nix, like I just mentioned earlier, has been playing really solid this year. Looks to continue that hot streak. I think he will against the Raiders at 5.5 point favorites this week. So Broncos in the straight up and Broncos in the spread. Green Bay Packers will be taking on the San Francisco 49ers at the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, where they said it might be snowing this weekend. Um, while the 49ers need to have this game, I think the Packers are the better team playing right now, and they're going to be the element of playing at home. Therefore, I will take the Packers in the straight up, and I will take them at 2.5 point favorites this week at the Lambeau Field. So Packers in both the straight up and the spread. Arizona Cardinals are traveling to Seattle to take on Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Cardinals are actually 1.5 point underdogs. Now, I know Seattle's a tough place to play, but I think Kyler Murray is going to have a game that also just keeps increasing his MVP odds on the season, and he's going to lead this team to another win over a division rival. I think the Cardinals will cover this 1.5 point underdog spread, and I'm going to take Cardinals in the straight up as well. So Cardinals in the sweep over the Seattle Seahawks. Sunday Night Football is the Philadelphia Eagles at 2.5 point favorites over the LA Rams. It's in LA, but I think the Eagles right now are playing at a high level of football, as I like to see right now. So I'm going to take the Eagles in the spread, and I'll take the Eagles in the straight up. And Monday Night Football, of course, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the LA Chargers. I know I've been talking a lot about the Chargers in this way. They've been playing really good, but I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a flawless game. We'll see if Jim Harbaugh can game plan differently for Lamar. One of the best defensive minds in football might be able to stop him a little bit, but I'm going to take the Ravens to win by at least 2.5 points, and I will take them in the straight up as well. So that's our weekly pick segment here in the Green Zone podcast, and that's all I got for you this week on the Green Zone podcast as well. So from Cameron Green, starting out from Duluth, Minnesota, thanks for tuning in this week, guys. I'll see you guys next Tuesday for our podcast. We'll do a Thanksgiving special, and we'll see you guys then. Peace out, guys.